Mindshare by definition is sustained attention. I'm always thinking about you, or it's accessible memories. Even if I'm not constantly thinking about you, you're in my mind. You have some bit of attention. Media, whether it's a live performance, a written piece of content, an email, short form video, a 9-hour documentary series, like it's a product. It's a thing that people are buying. Even if they're buying with their money, they're always going to be buying it with their time and attention. When you think about the receiving end of the person who you're communicating with, the craft becomes a lot more than what people assume, especially today with AI.
Hey, welcome to the Message Market Fit podcast. I'm your host, Chris Silvestri. This is the show where we chat with B2B SaaS folks, marketers, product leads, growth owners, and founders about how they join the conversation already happening in their customers' mind. We unpack how they think, how they research, and how they shape messages that actually move the needle. No fluff, just systems, insight, and strategy you can actually use. Quick note before we dive in. This podcast isn't sponsored. It's supported by Conversion Alchemy, my own consulting business. So if you're listening and thinking, I wonder how aligned our messaging actually is, check out the Message Market Fit Scorecard. It's a free diagnostic tool I built to help B2B SaaS teams pinpoint exactly where their messaging might be breaking down. You'll find the link in the show notes. I'm super excited about my guest today, Ronnie Higgins. Ronnie is a seasoned content marketing leader who specializes in building in-house media engines for SaaS companies with experience at Eventbrite and Hopin. In this episode, we chat about transforming traditional content marketing teams into media companies, how to create tension and storytelling in B2B content, the importance of getting on a customer's day one list, and his 3 core principles for successful content creation. Let's dive right in. Hey, Ronnie, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me. It's very much a pleasure on my end.
I wanted to start with a question that takes from your background. So you have an interesting background in media, film, and I wanted to ask you, can a hero's journey work in B2B?
Yeah, plenty of ways. It's not just, I think the best way to use the hero's journey is to just put your customer in that sort of journey. And as a marketer, even as a product, like I've helped product people help think about the hero's journey of how someone will reject an idea, but then eventually come back and realize, oh, this is the thing I needed, and all the things. And it helps them just think about putting the customer into the protagonist role of a story. And it made sense once I started saying there's a reason the word story is in user story. You're telling a story. So there's ways to use it for product. And then, of course, that then inherently lends itself to marketing and then even content. Because in my briefs, when I'm running a content team, I ask them to put together a statement that has the begin state and the end state. And the goal there is, all right, they sit down, they've interacted with this piece of content. What has happened before? What are they like? What is their experience that they're bringing and their knowledge that they're already bringing? And then at the end, what have they learned? Because the worst content, the worst marketing doesn't like move that, them through a journey. They need
Yeah,
to
yeah.
have like transformed by the end of it. And the hero's journey is a like very it's a well-known simple construct that helps people understand that the journey is not just like a simple this happened and that happened. There's
Linear.
it's a little bit more complicated than that and helps them think about the tension that they need to worry about. And I think that's what's missing in a lot of marketing copy, to be honest, is the tension. People
Mm.
don't know to like tap into that because that's what resonates with people. That's why people sit through a 2.5, 3 hour movie.
So I'm super curious, how do you define tension, especially in B2B? Because
Mm.
a lot of people think of B2B as more like very rational, logical decision-making unit. And how do you define tension in B2B?
So back to treating your customers like the protagonist, they have an aspiration, a goal. Like they want something. And it's not like the default for marketing and marketing copy would be to say, oh, we get you to the end. And but that doesn't really like when you're the customer doesn't see that and go, "Oh, totally believe you." They need to know that first you understand their problem. You understand their plight. And so the tension there is to stoke their pain points, to understand, to say, you need this. There's a gap that you have,
Mm.
like between who you are today and who you want to be. That gap can be shorter if you work with us. And but you need to talk about that tension and then the promise of the release of that tension with a brand or with you.
Yeah. Tell me more about this promise of the release of the tension.
It's just that's the value propositions and like it unlike movies where it feels like this big climax and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden people forget that there's a part of storytelling called the denouement, like where everything starts to like calm down. If you go back to that sort of structure of storytelling and the release of tension, that is the part where, say, a customer has made up their mind, they've or started to convince themselves that this is the right solution, and they start doing things like reading your pricing page, reading case studies, doing the things that validate their feelings and
Mm.
make sure that the tension that they felt in your sales pitch essentially
Yeah.
is actually going to stay resolved because once
Mm.
they don't want to become a customer and have buyer's remorse because they were
Yeah.
sold a shitty thing.
Yeah. That's something that I notice in myself as well. Whenever, I don't know, maybe I sign up for a tool, maybe I pay for it, and then I might go and scour like YouTube videos to actually see how other people use the same tool just because I want to make sure, did I actually make the right decision? Is this the way that I'm supposed to use this tool?
Exactly. I think that's the thing that I'm always trying to say with like when I build a content engine, if I build a content engine from scratch, I've had to do this twice so far. The thing that you're talking about is essentially like a flight simulator. People want to vicariously
Mm.
through other people live their decision.
Yeah.
And it's so important to have that content. Like a lot of people will say, oh, we need to have stuff about the product and explaining features. I'm like, yes, you need that. But you don't understand like how important that the product support content and all the things that like that. And then now with influencers and that content is, hey, we have users who are power users. Let's incentivize them to, and they already have a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Let's get them to do some walkthroughs and pay them because I think it was Six Sense just did some research here about the B2B buyer journey. And I forget the percentage. It was like, I want to say it was 70%. Sorry if I'm wrong. You can go look it up and put something in the show notes that corrects me. But it was like 70% of people use consultants or advisors or analysts to help them with their decision making.
Yeah.
And that historically or traditionally has been like some thought leader in the space, some very like prominent person in that industry that everyone listens to. But thanks to YouTube and all these other the fragmentation of the internet, that power is being diluted from those people to individual like YouTubers. So when people go and search YouTube, they see people using that and the availability of that content is what Byron Sharp and how brands go calls like physical availability. It's like
Yeah.
you're the like that materials that helps you like know what's available, how it works, does it work for my specific use case,
Yeah.
like all the little details that a product demo can never really cover.
Yeah. And now one thing that I'm realizing when you use ChatGPT, and especially because I use it for like very specific needs, I don't know, I'm researching a very specific feature or use case. ChatGPT gives you one single YouTube video to watch, and a lot of times it's an influencer that uses one of the tools that I'm researching, and that's it's super helpful because it shows the exact use case that I'm looking for. It's an influencer that uses the tool. Yeah, it's even more specific now.
Exactly.
I wanted to ask about your background. So, media, film, can you walk us through what have you done and what those fields taught you that you're still applying now?
Yeah, so to go back to that, I have to go back to when I was a little kid. Whenever my
Fine.
parents, yeah, like when my parents would have like their friends over on weekends, like I would be the kid who got the other kids to put on like a lip sync show for the parents. Like I was just always obsessed with music and performance and entertainment and movies, but at the time, like I didn't have the tools to do that. That came a little bit later when I would start playing with like my mom's camcorder. And then in high school, when I went to a magnet school here in the United States that had a TV studio, and I became part of the TV studio and did commercials and little shorts and
Mm.
I actually won a contest that was meant to like help people go to libraries and stuff like that, where we put together a little movie of someone getting lost in a library and all the books came to life. No special effects, but just people like acting out parts of books and things like that. And then I eventually went into, so I was playing music in New Orleans. I was playing shows at bars, and that eventually morphed into, to age myself a little bit, the early days of raving. And when I started going to raves in the late 90s and early aughts, started DJing, then I started putting on my own raves back then. And that was probably my first real taste at marketing. I didn't, because
Ah,
all the other things I just showed up to. I didn't really do anything to like try and
yeah.
sell something. But when I started throwing my own raves and starting to promote myself as a DJ, I started to understand marketing a lot more. Then that morphed into me realizing I needed an education, went to school a little bit later in life, mid 20s versus 18, decided to go to film school. I went to a film school. So here in the United States, a lot of film schools will say, all right, pick a domain. You're going to be a director, screenwriter, whatever. The school I went to was like, you're going to learn everything.
Mm.
And so I was so grateful of that because what it did was it didn't just teach me how to make a movie, it taught me the business side of everything. It taught me the theory and like all of the like media theory, media effects, mass communication, all of the stuff, the history of like how we got to this point. So my place in the grand scheme of things. And so that all leads to me working in the industry, working in film, television. Then '08 crash happens. I find myself looking for work. I end up taking a desk job. That desk job, I'm like, hey, you got a new program you're about to launch. Can I make a video for it? Just to use these skills that I have.
Yeah.
And that led me to marketing, which led me to content marketing, which is how I got here. It's a very long story,
I
but
like it.
the thing that I learned about it all is that media, whether it's a live performance, a written piece of content, an email, short form video, a 9 hour documentary series, like they all have it's a product. It's a thing that people are buying, whether it's they buying with their money
Mm.
or also even if they're buying with their money, they're always going to be buying it with their time and attention. And that when you put when you think about the receiving end of this, of the person who you're communicating with, the craft of becomes a lot more than what people assume, especially today with AI. Oh, we don't need writers anymore. We can just have AI write it. Yeah, it'll produce something that magically now looks like it was written by a person, but it's not going to fulfill the job that someone is buying it for. And so I feel like it's just instilled this idea that content is, and I know that's a four-letter word for a lot of people, but content in media is literally that. It's a thing that people are buying and spending time on, and that when you think about it enough, you can not just create something that's like well produced, but that actually drives an outcome.
Yeah, as you said earlier, it's a product. Yeah. I think like this unique perspective that you have gives you like a very different lens to look at things. And I like if I go on your website or your consultancy, Neutral Ground Labs, the value proposition said an oversimplified, heavily commodified playbook brought you here. What do you mean by this? Because I know, I think that's your unique perspective that allows you to have this view on
Yeah.
how things are done in B2B now.
So I was very fortunate that moment when I said, hey, can I make a video from a previous employer was the exact same time that content marketing and B2B was becoming a thing. So when I was making videos and was a video producer, a video marketer, I was itching for more. And that was when I discovered content, and content is king. And at the time, what it was sold as was, it made sense to me. You had a company, and instead of buying an ad in somewhere else, in some other media, you were going to become it. The thing I hate, I'm trying to think of a better example, but for lack of better example, take Guns and Ammo. For those who don't know, Guns and Ammo is a magazine for people who fetish about guns and ammo. For the longest time, people who wanted to sell things to those people bought an ad in Guns and Ammo. But now, if you are Smith and Wesson or whoever makes bullets, like,
Yeah.
you end up just creating your own version of it. And that's what you needed to do. And that was what content was for me at the beginning. And I understood it thanks to my education of understanding the history of media and my place in it. I saw that the playbook, even the old, there's no real one playbook. When people talk about the old playbook, even myself, it's like a series of content that came out around that time. It all said what you were doing. You were literally trying to own an audience instead of paying for ads where someone else owned the audience. This idea got lost because what happened was the parts of content marketing that were immediately and measurable, and I want to say immediately measurable and then directly attributable, became what most people cared about.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's why content became SEO, marketing became just SEO and ads.
Very
And it's like,
mechanical.
yeah. And so that's why commodified and standardized is when anything gets commodified and standardized, the quality of it gets whittled down to the most functional parts. And I hate to say it, but feels like the content marketing that I got sold when I chose this career is now a luxury brand. And it shouldn't be, because that makes it sound like it's expensive and slow
Yeah.
and doesn't get a lot done. It's the total opposite. But that's what I mean by that, is that when people think about content, they think SEO blogs, or they think, oh, just social. And it's no, man, like, content is the marketing. And like, I even try in that copy to avoid talking about just content marketing, because the research that I do, anytime I've worked with a marketing team, what I do impacts practically every aspect of marketing. Like, the
Yeah.
best marketing, best content teams are fully integrated to the rest of the company. They're not just
Yeah.
siloed off. And so
Yeah.
by that,
I see some of the things you do. One thing that I liked was when you talk about niche segmentation. So I go beyond what your standard customer research reveals to uncover insights no one else has yet. How do you,
yeah.
what's your process? I'm curious. I'm a nerd about research.
Oh, dude, I'd love to give away every detail of it, but
What you
I,
can.
I need to get paid.
Yeah.
So the research process that I have developed, it's a protocol that, thanks to AI, I can now do by myself. And I say by myself, but it really does take effort on, say, a company's side to put me in touch with customers. But I can build synthetic audiences based on a series of interviews, qualitative interviews, with using a interview process that I've designed, that a 1 hour interview with each, say, 7 to 8 customers. I spend that interview getting them to tell me about their, not just the goals and challenges related to the product, but to their job function,
Uh,
their business, whatever it is that they need to do for work. Depends on the customer. And I get them to tell me about all of that. And then I say, pick one or two of those things and walk me through how you go about learning and making sure you are making the right choice about that.
uh,
And that question leads them to start telling me about their media consumption habits, their
uh,
trust signals, everything. And then the conversation then evolves into what essentially connects the dots between their category entry points, their value propositions, and then their media habits. So that leads to that's why I like niche segmentation comes before, in my methodology, distribution cartography, because
Yeah.
after I've done that, we can draw a map of customers are hanging out online and offline, where you are online and offline.
Yeah.
And when you draw that map, it's so much easier to see what you need to do versus follow industry norms of, oh, I'm just going to publish on LinkedIn. Guess what? No one's freaking on LinkedIn. You just wasted millions of dollars in time.
Yeah.
Like, your people are over here, or maybe everyone is on LinkedIn, but your competition isn't where they also are. And so it helps unlock what they're doing, how they're consuming media on, and how do you essentially become part of their media diet so that they're choosing to pay attention to you. And so that when the time comes for them to need your products or services, you're there. They already know who
Yeah.
you are. You're already at the top of the list. And
Yeah.
the research shows 8 out of 10 times they're going to choose from that list.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super interesting. It's quite similar to what I do with the AI kind of synthetic research. In my case, it's less focused on distribution, more on conversion. But I love
Hmm.
that question because, yeah, what I found was that the more context and narrative you can feed into the AI, the better it can fill in the gaps, as you said, between like with all the information that it has across the internet. And especially for understanding that what you call the day one list. Can you walk us through that? As you mentioned, like being
Yeah.
on that list and how to do it.
Yeah. Majority of B2B customers spend over half of their buying journey doing their own research. A lot of that sort of research in their ideas of what solutions they need are already some pre-baked before they even realize that they need to go into the market. Best example I can give is, imagine an IT director or a CTO, and they need to, something happened and they're in a board meeting, and all of a sudden there's a discussion on needing to grow their cloud services storage. They don't go to Google and say, type in best
Cloud search.
cloud solutions. Like, they know there's Azure and there's AWS.
Yeah.
If there's anything else, maybe someone will tell them, maybe they'll stumble upon it when they're doing that research for like about 60% of their journey. But almost always, the people who are buyers of B2B products tend to know about solutions. They're not starting from a blank slate. That is almost never true. It depends on category creation, all the stuff that was like a hot topic years ago practically doesn't exist anymore. It's like there's so much information there, there's so much content being thrown at everybody that even if they aren't aware of it, like that Google search that they go to Google, if they were to go search for best solutions, they're immediately going to see AWS and Azure and go, oh yeah, duh, I already know what the
Yeah.
solutions are. They're not going to look any further. And that's the day one list. It's typically anywhere from 2 to 3, sometimes 4 solutions that a B2B customer is going to have on a short list. They're not going to
Mm.
talk to 20 salespeople about products. They don't have time for that.
Yeah.
And especially depending on where they are and the size of the purchase. If it's like a $200 a year, like, sure, okay, no one's going to, the process isn't going to be that complicated. But when you're talking about an enterprise B2B where the contract is like hundreds of thousands of dollars, like, there's multiple people involved, and all of them are going to already have opinions. And so the it's the whole mantra that used to be true of no one gets fired from buying from IBM. Like,
Yeah.
that was because that was just like the trusted brand. That was the thing that finance would sign off on. That was the thing that whoever was going to influence that decision would sign off on. And so
Yeah.
that is the day one list, is this idea that B2B customers do not start with a blank slate. They typically enter the market with solutions in mind. And then Sixth Sense research from last year found that 8 out of 10 times they buy from that list, meaning not on it, you're just not even in contention.
Yeah. How do you see that? I've seen some of those Google searches maybe work in the case of, for example, you're already using a solution and you want to find an alternative. So I've seen searches for like best alternative to, I don't know, AWS, and then you build a comparison page that addresses those needs. Do you see that as a slight difference from that
Oh
case
yeah,
that you mentioned?
I think so. Yeah. If you've seen that, that's, let's say someone's cloud storage had a breach, right?
Yeah.
And they didn't know about AWS or Azure, or they just can't afford it for some reason,
Yeah,
although
exactly.
AWS is cheaper, cheap enough for most people to afford. But let's just say they go and do that. Like, anybody who's doing SEO should be paying attention to volume of searches or any spikes in that, because that's the type of thing where I'm trying to remember what the tool was that shut down right around Christmas. It was some bookkeeping software, and I was
Mhm.
like, "Oh man, like this is the opportunity now where you need to hurry up and like spin up that page
Snatch.
if you don't have it, of like what's
Yeah.
the alternative to that, because that is what people are searching. And that is an opportunity. If people are searching, if there's any volume whatsoever for that search, you should have something to
Yeah.
facilitate. That's why you should have the page, you should have the review site, you should have everything that could signal to the person that you are a great alternative to something. And
Yeah.
so, yeah,
That.
I think that's where that comes into play, because it's still a brand search if you think about it, which is 50% of Google searches. It, but it's a brand search that's not trying to find the brand; it's trying to find the contenders.
Yeah. There has to be that kind of a trigger event that causes them to look for alternatives.
And that's the thing that you would want to know too,
Yeah.
because if I knew that so and so was shutting down, instead of it just being a page, a landing page that's like typical, like us versus them, my copy, I would want the copy to be like, hey, whatever that, I wish I could have remembered. It was like birch or something, would it be branch? That's what it was.
Uh,
And as branch is shutting down, but we're still here, or something
yeah.
like that, that lets them like that, because that's the category entry point. That's the trigger that sent them there. The thing that that's the tension you're stoking that
Yeah.
lets them know, hey, we know, we hear you, we're here, don't
Yeah.
worry. And I feel like that's where, not, it's more customization, but that's where personalization should be focused more so. As it's not about, oh, Chris, hi, welcome to the site. I mean,
We
that's
do this
sometimes
and that.
weird and pointless. Like, it's better to just actually know what it is that your customers are thinking, doing, and feeling in the moment that they're interacting with you.
Yeah. Yeah. The context. I wanted to ask.
I call this the marketing marshmallow test, after
Ah,
Stanford's marshmallow experiment, which asked, gave them a choice of one marshmallow that they could eat immediately, or two if they just waited 15 minutes. The study was designed to see when delayed gratification developed in children, and later made some correlations with like future success that have been disproven now, recent
mm,
actually. But it's still a good analogy for that choice that CFOs and boards need to make. And it depends on, like with everything, it always depends. But I would want to talk to them about where the diminishing returns, like what are the other, what's the negative effects of what is happening. I think when you look at a lot of the metrics across the board, I only have benchmarks for what's certain studies, but last year there was a lot of stuff out there where marketers were saying they were struggling to make their goals. And then there are lots of revenue ops people who said that they weren't going to make their goals last. There's a lot of, hey, we're just not going to be able to do what we need to do. And that that's a signal. That's a signal that you need to pay attention to. And if you, as a board member, have a fiduciary responsibility, there's your responsibility. There's
yeah.
other data that you need to like dive into of, okay, let's look at the cost of acquisition over time. Let's look at how much we're spending and what's the growth rate of budgets being spent and the ROI of the paid ads. And you could even do certain expense. There's lots of different ways that I can answer this questions, but the idea is to figure out what is it that they are paying attention to. What language does finance and the board
Yeah.
use in these meetings related to the business? Because if they're measuring pipeline velocity and MQLs and all this stuff that's not really performance. They're just things that we've made up as signals. You need to understand the business metrics and understand, like, you also need to understand what you're talking about when you're talking about data. Because a lot of times, and I still make these mistakes and have to constantly go chat GPT or Gemini or anything and be like, is this, is my thinking of this metric correct? Yes or no? Just because I don't want to sound stupid and I'm just self-doubting myself there, but it's still, that's what I think you need to do because you
Yeah.
don't want to, there's an enormous amount of credibility that needs to be built in this change, in this convincing them to let go of their quarterly metric obsession, understand that it's a balance. So, like, I posted this about the marshmallow test recently on LinkedIn, and everybody was like, it's not one or the other, it's both. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I said. Thanks. Because, like, the kids in the marshmallow test, the original marshmallow test, if they waited, they got the first marshmallow and the second marshmallow. It's a
Yeah.
balance. You get both.
Yeah.
Like, it was always, the choice was always one or both, not one or the other. And
Yeah.
so it's about showing the correlations between those things. And then, of course, needing to understand new metrics that I think, I'm saying new metric, newish metrics to a lot of marketers who have with MQLs and
Mhm.
all the other like conversion rates on like growth marketing type metrics, and understanding the correlations and testing to see if there's causation between them. So I did a lot of this stuff at Eventbrite where we would see a partnership with our PR team and we'd say, all right, next month we're going to start talking about this topic. How about you all find stories about our customers who are doing that thing? We actually did find them ourselves because we put them in the content. And we said, here, do a story on this a month before or a few weeks before. And we'd see a lift compared to when
Mm.
we do that of when we did publish the content, we were then able to link to those stories.
Yeah.
So it gave us like all this stuff to boost it up a little bit further. And I don't have any of that data today, but if I were to be trying to convince a board and CFO, I'd be like, let's run these experiments and I could show you and demonstrate it. But we just need to understand that there's two invisible forces at work there. There's social adhesion or cohesion, and that
Mhm.
is the idea that this is, people like us do this. And then there's the status quo bias where this is the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
And that is what most people who have a fiduciary responsibility to the company, it's, those are the two factors that are at play.
Yeah.
And when you
The anchors.
understand why they're sticking to those things, what it is that they are trying to hold on to so desperately, you need to show them the risk of holding on for too long because that's what's at hand. That's our responsibility as marketers to go to them and show that, yes, that worked and it's still working. And
Mm.
it might for a little bit longer, but we are at risk if we do it. Back when I was doing it at Eventbrite and tried to convince them to build a media company before that term became a banal platitude, my, what I did is I showed them the performance plateau. I showed them that the only way I could grow organic traffic is to somehow make people search Google more. If they had a way to do that besides my plan, let me know. Because
Yeah.
I was like, we were already publishing at a neck break speed. We're doing everything we can and it's plateauing. So what
Mm.
do you want me to do to grow organic traffic? And
Yeah.
so that was what I had to do, is I had to prove in the data what was happening.
Yeah. Speaking of status quo and buzzwords, I like your distinction between mindshare and attention. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, this was actually, so I wrote a newsletter about this because, get a little bit personal. I have attention deficit order or ADHD, and I years ago realized that I needed to do more than pop a pill to manage my symptoms. And
Uh-huh.
so I started to do what most research obsessed people do and started to read through research, read through and understand my brain a lot more, which then circled me back to my work, which was funny. It was like I was learning about how to fix my brain,
Yeah.
but I was also getting better at my job
A
at the
job,
same
yeah.
time, which was really cool. So like I dove into research about attention, like what is attention? So I could start to notice how my attention waned and this and that. And that was when I learned that what I call, because no one called it this, is the binary attention fallacy. This idea that our attention is either off, on, attentive, inattentive, focus on focus is not true. It's a outdated understanding of attention in that there's still varying ways that we are understanding attention, but one of the most, I would say, consensus is that it's a multi-stage process and that there's different flavors of it. And to help you understand Mindshare, I have to help you understand that, which is there's peak attention. That's when shiny object, something that piques our attention, the image or something that sort of shocks you as you're scrolling mindlessly through your feed.
Yeah,
That
like those super scary, cringy AI videos that you see with monsters. I don't know if it's
yeah.
only me. It's crazy on
Yeah, no,
Instagram.
yeah, but no, it's a good example.
Yeah,
And so there, or things that just look unbelievable, right? Something that's just, what? I can't believe that.
yeah,
And so when you, that's peak attention, but from there you need to merit attention. All right, you grabbed my attention, but I got other shit to do. There's
yeah,
like an endless sea of content there I can be consuming. Is this worth my further attention? That's merit attention. And then the next part is reward attention. All right, I've stayed a little bit longer. You've convinced me to stay a little bit longer. Now you need to like actually give me the thing give me some satisfaction that I needed to stay longer. And then the fourth stage is convert attention. So it's either watch something else, look at, or take action, or if you put this in the sequence of, say, pieces of content, it's like, or one long piece of content, it's like, that's the same way of constructing a story. It's, I've got this scene, I've piqued your attention, I've merited your attention, I've rewarded your attention, I'm converting you, now you're going to watch the next scene. Converting ends up circling back to peak. The difference between attention and mind share is that there is no difference, and that's actually why I wrote this piece. Is I started to see mind share popping up a lot on LinkedIn and my different news feeds and people talking about it. And then I started to see people talking about how you want, forget about attention, you want mind share. And I understand the simplicity of doing it that way and how it like grabs attention, but I think we the idea of acting like they're separate things is disingenuous and causes more problems in the long run. And it's actually makes it like it's going to be harder for someone to actually earn mind share if they think they're separate,
yeah,
because mind share by definition is sustained attention. It's
yeah.
I'm always like thinking about you, or it's accessible memories even if I'm not constantly thinking about you. You're in my mind, you have some bit of attention, because back to me studying attention, there's a lot of neuroscience right now that, and I think you'll actually appreciate this, that sort of points to the idea that our collective consciousness
Mm.
is a series of
Young.
algor is a series of algorithms
Oh
of
wow.
ideas vying for our attention. So if I'm not thinking about, let's say, the Creator Kitchen with Jay Kunze. I don't walk through my day thinking about him and the Creator Kitchen.
Yeah.
But when someone says, hey, do you have a mastermind that a lot of creators and creative people come, that's good for me to sign up for? That somewhere in the back of my mind, my attention was on that and was brought back to the forefront of my
Mm.
mind.
Yeah,
Like
it's
it was
more on the
like,
surface.
it's more on the surface, yeah. And so that's why mind share and attention shouldn't be considered separate things, because the idea of that attention being a cycle or a consideration journey helps you understand that why the frequency and recency of your interactions and making sure you're staying top of mind.
Mm.
So that's why you're not Daft Punk. Daft Punk could only published what, like 4 studio albums in their decade, but everybody knows who they are because
Yeah.
their 4 studio albums were in their live show changed EDM. If you're not them, you need to make sure. So Jay Akunzo and Creator Kitchen, like they they're gonna stay top of mind because I've been a member.
Mm.
And but let's say I was never a member, but I knew of it. It's up to the Creator Kitchen, Jay and Melanie, to constantly be promoting it and talking about it so that when someone does ask me that question of, do you know of a good mastermind for creative people? I think of them and not someone else.
Yeah.
And so what they're doing in that repetition and recency frequency of the messaging is they're holding my attention. They're converting my attention like all the
Yeah.
time.
Is this what you mean when you say B2B marketers should think more as broadcasters rather than?
Yeah. I had this suspicion for the longest time and over the last couple of years validated it that my very amazing colleagues who come from publishing and journalism learned how to make stories, tell stories, create stories, research stories, hit deadlines, this and that. But when you think about it, the publishing model doesn't care if you read anything. They just care if you bought it.
Yeah.
Oh, your subscription with a pile of them untouched. Oh, I subscribe to it, but I never read the thing. And the people who are in print and publishing, like the former print publishing, they never had to think about the like other jobs to be done of content. They've had to think about the informational, they've had to think about the emotional, but they don't think as much about the social. I think they do a little bit more, but not so much, which is like it's just like content is a shared experience. People
Mm.
after they watch the latest like Marvel movie or whatever TV show everybody's watching, they go online or they go to their friends and they talk about it. That's the social job to be done. You don't want to not watch this show because you everyone's talking about it. But then there's the temporal and the spatial. So mainly like the temporal is where the broadcasting comes from because broadcasters had to figure out not just how to get you to tune into the channel and to watch the content, but to not change the channel. And
Mm.
then they had to think the broadcast executives, not the showrunners, but the executives who program what goes on, needed to make sure you didn't change the channel between shows. So, like, all of that helps you as a marketer, not just a content person, think about this. I would say it's even better than the hero's journey of think how to get someone to go through their buyer journey is like, because then you start to think about, all right, if I sat down and built a marketing engine from scratch and I did all my research and I talked to everyone about their buying habits and then their media habits, I would then have all the information I need to know, okay, it's a breadcrumb trail. Thinking of it as 24 hours of a cable network to fill up. It's just
Yeah.
a breadcrumb trail that I need to fill up and make sure that I have all of the pieces of breadcrumbs that go from keeping your attention and keeping the brand top of mind, then all of the like physical availability stuff that helps you understand your pain points, your problems, your challenges to find solutions for them, then the stuff that's product aware, all the stuff towards the bottom that helps you make your purchase decision, whether it's like sales enablement, stuff to convince your CFO to sign
Yeah.
off on this, stuff that helps your CTO sleep at night, that there's
Yeah.
nothing to worry about on agreeing, like whatever it is you need, you start to understand it because you've thought about how do I not just spray and pray content and with money, but how do I build a marketing engine that is efficient and has all the pieces it needs and none of the waste essentially.
Yeah. 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 Super efficient and sustained as well. All right. I have one last question. So let's say that you're writing your manifesto on how to create successful B2B content. What would your three principles be?
Content is a product, number one,
Mm.
that unlocks everything. Content is an experience. I would almost even say, I say experience because I don't want to, I'm tempted to say content is an event. But the point of that is that even if it's an email, a SIN post, a short form video, long form video, 9 hour documentary series, it takes time to consume
Yeah.
everything. And there's a search and opportunity cost for it, like that comes with it that you need to think about. And when you think about crafting an experience, even if it's just, oh, I want this like for SEO because I want to rank, it's great. After they click on it, then what? It's whole bring them on a journey, give them an experience, make them laugh, make them feel something, all the
Yeah.
like,
The tension, as you said.
yeah, get depth is what the goal of that is. And then The last part I'd say is content is an ecosystem. And so when you treat content as an ecosystem, it becomes more than a bunch of separate pieces, but like a product, it's like you see it as an engine and as multiple parts that run together in time, in sync to be something greater than the sum of its parts. And
Awesome.
those are my three things. Content is a
Love them.
product, content is an experience, and content is an ecosystem.
I love them. Are they? Can we spoiler it? Yeah, I know that you're working on a top secret project. Can we say something or not?
We can, yeah. I gave you a little preview of it. I actually
Yeah.
almost finished the second chapter yesterday.
Nice.
I'll
Congrats.
be knocking out the rest later. So my friend Dozy, I met him about a couple of years ago, and we started talking, and he got on calls. And every time he got on a call, he was just like telling me, and I hate saying this because it sounds like I hate promoting myself this way, but
Ah,
he would always be like, My mind is blown. You know so much, man. Why don't you post any of this stuff online?" I'm like, because it's not, the algorithm doesn't give a shit about it.
mm,
Like, it's too nuanced. Like, I can't just give you, like, everything that I just taught you, like, was so just in depth that it's long form, this and that. And he's, you should write a book or something, teach a course. And so when I quit my job back in April, I spent the time figuring out, like, what it was that all of the things that I could teach everyone about, not just marketing or not just content, but marketing and business, to equip for like a more timeless like playbook. I hate to even call it a playbook
mm.
on how to approach marketing. And I'm calling it brand to demand marketing and content strategy for B2B, tentative title. And a lot of the stuff that I talked about with you here today is from that. And I'm hoping to have the first draft of this done in like another few weeks, and then probably have to workshop it a little bit and fix some stuff, and then
Nice.
hopefully find a designer and get it out there soon.
Nice. Congrats. Looking forward to seeing it out and promoting and reading.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate the opportunity to tell you
Yeah,
all this stuff.
loved having you here. And also, I loved skimming through the first chapter. Super interesting. And it's what I like to nerd on as well. So, where can people find you? LinkedIn and then on
Yeah,
your
so
website?
LinkedIn, Ronnie Higgins, and website Neutral Ground Labs. Or no, sorry, that's the name of the company, but Neutral Ground Labs, and it's on the neutralground.com.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. We'll include them in the show notes. And thank you so much, Ronnie. It's been super awesome and interesting.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks so much for listening. If the episode sparked some ideas or made you rethink how you're doing messaging, check out the Message Market Fit scorecard. It's free, quick to complete, and it'll show you exactly where your copy or strategy might be misaligned. You'll find the link in the show notes. And if you want to go deeper or just bounce ideas around, I'm always up for a chat. Hit me up on LinkedIn or Twitter at SylvestriChris. And of course, if you enjoyed the episode, leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify really helps more people discover it. That's it for this one. See you next time.